Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Small Cap Discoveries conference call. Today on our call, we have none other than Paul Andreola, the president, and Kristaps Ronka, the CEO of Namesilo Technologies. Namesilo trades on the Canadian Securities Exchange under the symbol URL and on the OTC under the symbol URLOF. The company is trading at roughly 22 cents with about 62 million shares outstanding, or about a $13.5 million market cap. And before we begin, for disclosure purposes, it should be noted that Paul Andreola is both the CEO of Namesilo and Small Cap Discoveries. I'd now like to introduce Paul Andreola and Kristaps Ronka.
Perfect. Thanks, Trevor. For those of you that have been on some of our Zoom calls before, we're going to take a slightly different procedure here. Really, what I want to do is I'm going to give a real short sort of summary of what the business does. We'll talk a little bit about the financials. I'd love to have Kristaps talk to some of the new products and services we're launching, and then quickly after that go into Q&A. I think we're probably going to be best served by answering as many questions as you guys have. So on that note, Namesilo is a bit of a hybrid company right now. We are technically an investment holding vehicle. We have about $4 to $5 million worth of call it tradable securities right now, but the bulk of the value in the business is really Namesilo LLC, which we own 81.5% of. The other 18.5% is owned by Kristaps and his team that are managing and running the day-to-day operations of the business. Namesilo is a domain registrar, and if you know what GoDaddy does or web.com, you basically know what we do. We serve mostly or predominantly more to the domainer market. So while we do get sort of your average purchaser of domains who wants to set up a website, a lot of our customers are professional domainers, and they do a lot of transactions, so they're buying typically a lot of domains and with the goal of selling them at a higher price. So we've launched a number of new products that are really geared towards our client base. We are a growing business and growing both on the customer side and the domains we have under management. As a matter of fact, I think we just cracked 3.5 million. And we'll go into sort of the ups and downs of what's been happening with the domain count. So yeah, that's kind of the company in a nutshell. We generated 7.56 million in revenue in this latest quarter. That was up almost 17% from the same period last year. One thing to note in our numbers in this quarter is we had to basically change the way we account for some of the revenue. So we saw a drop in revenue slightly from the same period last year. If we were to measure it on an apples-to-apples basis, we actually grew by about 21% this year over last year. So we're maintaining a healthy bit of growth. The bulk of that is still coming from the growth in our domain count. But we are also starting to generate some revenue from those ancillary services, which we'll touch on in a bit. We saw gross margins came in exactly the same level as they did last year, albeit down from Q3 and Q4, more predominantly Q2 and Q3. And the reason for some of the drop had a lot to do with some of the difference in currency. There's a pretty big move in the US dollar, so that affected some of our input costs against our Canadian revenue numbers. What else can I tell you here? Bookings still remain strong. Deferred revenue maintains strong. And we had positive EBITDA of just shy of $500,000 Canadian for the quarter. So all kind of trending in the right direction, albeit at a slightly slower pace than we've seen historically, but still a solid quarter. That's kind of it in a nutshell. I'm sure that that's probably going to draw some questions. I know we're going to have some questions on a number of things. So why don't I turn it over to Kristaps a little bit? I do want to start talking about some of the new things that we've launched and some of the things we're launching, and then we can open it up for questions. So Kristaps, maybe let everybody know some of the new products we're working with right now.
Sure. Yeah, so our customer base is mostly domainers, but we have been trying to appeal to more SMBs as well, just to get that margin up on the added services. So over the course of the last probably year, we're closer to start of 2020, we added hosting and premium DNS and SSL and email services to hopefully get some of these customers to upgrade and use those services. And we've added a funnel, an upsell funnel, to get users on it, but it's proven not to be as successful as another type of upsell funnel that we used earlier with the one product, where it was a binary decision for the user. So we're revamping it. We're going to make it a little bit, we're gamifying it and hopefully getting more customers to use our add-on services. So that's an exciting project for us in the next few weeks. We're adding a new payment processing provider that'll give us access to about 150 methods of payment worldwide. So that's really exciting. We found that when we added WeChat for our Asian customers, we added about $1,000 of revenue a day. So adding new payment methods is a good idea. So that's coming hopefully maybe today in a beta or probably closer to Monday. So that's exciting. Yeah, in terms of new services, we're working on a WordPress hosting, so a containerized WordPress hosting. So that's the, I'm not going to get into technical details, but it's a better version of offering hosting than a shared hosting offering. It's just if one customer screws up something and has a huge spike in load, then it doesn't necessarily take down the other customers. So that's the shared hosting equivalent, safer equivalent, I guess. And hopefully launching that in the next 2 to 3 weeks. There's a constant upgrade process of the backend. So there's a lot of code debt that we took on. It's called code debt. So the backend, the code, everything's sort of spaghetti, and it takes a lot of time to move that around to be something nice and usable and extendable. So a lot of the stuff that we do is not necessarily visible in the front end. We've integrated .de finally, which is I think the world's 3rd largest TLD. So we haven't started any marketing on it, but it's exciting. So we can offer that a lot cheaper. We're direct with .de, which is not the easiest thing to do. You have to get somebody over there and do a day of training in Germany. So we actually had somebody that we got to do that. And then we got the accreditation for .cn, which is China. So that's a big one. Still have to integrate that. .uk, same thing. Yeah, there's a bunch going on. And then the bigger products, those are for the sort of the regular users. And then to tailor to our domainer customer base, we've launched Namelot, which is our brokerage solution. And we've hired the guy that used to run Uniregistry's brokerage. He apparently did $100 million in sales with them over there, his lifetime there. So hoping for similar results here. And the new brokerage that we have is a little bit innovative. I guess we're trying to be innovative in the space and offering a sort of Uberization of the broker side. So up to now, every broker has been sort of well known in the industry. What we want to do is let anybody in the world become a broker and start selling domains to make a little commission. Go through a little training with our platform. Once they get approved, then they become a broker. And then as the seller, you can basically list your domain on this platform and then choose one broker that you like, or submit to a pool of brokers. And then that pool could be these people that are selling worldwide. So hopefully expanding the pie a bit. And then the other product is more domainer centric, which is it's called catch.club, and it's going to be for drop catching domains. So that's a little complex. It's not complex. It's a life cycle thing of the domain's availability, but basically right before the domain gets available in general availability, it goes through a process, and it first drops. And usually the only way you can get those is through an API or by going through some of these auctions, and where Catch Club is going to participate in a bunch of auctions for our users. And then the commission there is hopefully 20% on top of whatever they've paid to win that domain. Let's take a step back and describe what you get paid for today and what other service people who have domain would want from you. What do we get paid for today? So domain registration, renewal, restoration, and transfers are currently what we get paid for today. We have the upsell going for hosting, shared hosting, SSL, premium DNS, some of these products. The growth hasn't been, it's growing month over month. We have more and more users. If you look at the graphs, they're all the right way, but the absolute numbers aren't huge. So that's where the new upsell funnel should help out a lot. I don't know if that answers your chat question, but
there you go.
let me know. Yeah. And I think, yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. So if anyone has any questions, I think just feel free to yell them out.
There you go. Yeah, so there's, so everybody knows there's a chat function that's part of the Zoom call here. Easiest way to ask your questions is to type them there, and then I'll ask Kristaps or I can answer them as we go here. But one of the key things that everybody should recognize is this is a business right now. We've got over 170,000 customers, and the goal here is to obviously extract as much revenue as we can on a per customer basis, but also to grow that customer base number. So the way we do that is because they're typically going to need more than one service. They buy the domain from us. We're able to upsell them on the other services they need. So I think we've described most of those other services, hosting, email services, website design, things like that. But there's also some products that we've launched that are not necessarily there to generate money. They're there to generate traffic. And one of the neat ones is we've got a logo maker. It's an artificial intelligence logo maker. It's free, but the nice thing is when somebody's looking for a logo, they can find us, and of course they're sort of in the store, and we're seeing a pretty good increase in traffic because of some of these new products we've launched. And I don't know, maybe Kristaps, maybe touch on a little bit of the thinking behind that.
The marketing side, yeah, I didn't mention any of that. So we've started working a lot on the SEO side, creating new pages, working with a group out of Macedonia that's helping us out with some backlinks, like legitimate backlinks at legitimate blogs. We're tracking our domain authority rankings, and we are now at 85 out of 100, which is getting close to the Namecheap levels. They do an amazing job. Namecheap's one of our probably top competitors. And their SEO strategy is it's amazing. So any keyword you really search for in our space, they pop up, and which is driving their growth. So our strategy is over the next few months and years to grow on that side. Logo Maker is an example of that. So Logo Maker, people going on the web search for, usually when you're thinking of starting a business, you might think of what name should I get, maybe what logo, what's the logo going to look like. So just being part of that process is a good idea. We don't rank nearly anywhere important enough for getting traffic through it, but it is a growing keyword, and we are rising in the ranks. So there's traffic coming from it, but lots to do on that side as well. And then on the other marketing interesting things is we work with registries. So registries are the guys that own the .coms, not in this case, the .coms don't pay for this, but the other smaller guys do. They basically, our background, so my background and the CMO's background, we started a company back in the day called Ad Parlor. It was a cost per acquisition company on Facebook. And so we have a little bit of a background in Facebook advertising. So we pitch these registries to basically give us money to advertise their TLD landing pages. So if you go to like namesilo.com/TLD/CA, for example, not that CA is a customer of this, what I'm talking about, but ICU or .live, doesn't matter. You'll see their branded landing page, and we offer them to take their money and spend it on Facebook for them to drive users with the goal of registering their TLD, but through us, obviously. So we get the benefit of obviously the revenue and we get the benefit of the revenue and the branding as well that goes with it on social. And then we have a big strategy around guerrilla marketing. So we find Quora posts and Reddit posts and a bunch of other blogs where we can post answers to questions that users may have around domain registration and websites and things like that. So
good. Okay, so there's another question here in terms of the domain. Is every domain the same price? No. Most of the domains have different pricing, and even at that, a lot of times the registrars will come back with some sort of promotional pricing that they want us to sort of bring out to the customer. So it really depends. .com, for example, we sell for, I think it's $8.99 right now, but sometimes we'll discount it because there's a promotion that we're trying to fulfill. But then you get other domains that can be significantly higher priced. So it really depends on the individual domain, what the registrar is trying to do. Could you describe in a bit of detail what each of the ancillaries were? I think we mostly covered off most of those. You know, we do hosting, we do website, we do email, the logos we mentioned. Then there's a few domainer specific services like the brokerage services and the SEO packages and data packages and things like that that are available. But unless, I mean, those are most of the major ones, Kristaps, if I can recall. I don't think there's really much more than that, but we're constantly looking at new sort of innovative products and services that we can angle either to our customer or to our registrar partners that we work with. So you can expect to see more and more services that are geared towards customers.
Well, why don't I interrupt here, and why don't we unpack this a little bit further for some people that are maybe new to the business or just want to get a deeper understanding of it. So there's a core business, and people are paying $7.99 or $8.99 to buy a .com domain. Those are universal; everybody needs them.
Yep.
And then the whole model is to effectively upsell with hosting and logo makers and all these other ancillary services. So, but before we go down that path, maybe you could talk about VeriSign just for the core domains. Like, you know, you're selling them for $8.99 or $7.99. How much that goes to VeriSign? How much comes back to Namesilo? So effectively, we can get a better understanding of the margin on just the core business alone.
Sure. You know what? I'll give Kristaps that because he knows the real breakdown of everything.
sure. VeriSign takes $7.85. ICANN takes 18 cents, so it ends up being $8.03. Our cost on .coms. And then there's obviously the transaction fees and things like that in between. So the margin in the end isn't great on domains. It's not a huge margin business. It's really a commodity business. There's you could go to us, you could go to GoDaddy and pay 3 times more. It's really a starting point, I guess, in the long run. And then the idea is to get them upsold on the higher margin items like hosting and SSL and website builders and so on and so forth.
Okay, and then some of those other higher margin services you're talking about, what sort of sliding scale are they on in terms of margins? Do some go up to 90%? Are they kind of between 40 and 50? Do you have any sort of barometer there for us to?
Yeah, so our hosting, for example, we charge about $239 per month, and our cost is roughly $1. So that's roughly the margin there. The premium DNS product, we charge $9.85, and the cost is around $4. So the margins are healthy there. It's just getting the users to use these products, and that's where the upsell funnel is so important, because you come in, you register your domain. A lot of users might not know what the next step is, and you need to really spoon feed it. So we have an upsell funnel currently. It's just not functioning as well as we'd like.
Right.
So working on that. It's part of the game. It's iterate, test, and repeat.
Yeah, and I'll add, I mean, that's exactly it. The domains themselves are the commodity that get everybody in the door, and depending on the kind of customer that we have. The recent number I heard about, which I was a little surprised, but in the domainer business, there's roughly 350 million domains in the world right now that are sort of in use of some way or another, but about 100 million of those are owned by domainers. So that part of the market is pretty significant, but they act very differently than the average person who's looking to buy a domain. So I really try to categorize, there's two styles of sort of upselling that we do. One is to the domainer, and one is to the average sort of retail user of a domain. And those are different services, right? So probably the more potential for innovation is on the domainer side, and it's a significant part of the market. So we want to try to capture as much of that with new services.
Yeah, a domainer is a domain investor, just to clarify.
Yeah.
Just
Sorry.
for that chat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chat question.
And then with VeriSign, from sort of a corporate accounting level, you get a bulk payment from them like once a year, or how does that come through on the accounting statement side for you guys?
We prepay them, so we pay them before the delivery. So I make wires every other day, and it's sort of a prepaid type of solution. So we take off the balance.
Yeah, so I mean, this is where the accounting really starts to scratch everybody's heads. But you'll see a prepaid line item there. We have to fund the VeriSign account in advance, and then what happens is when we charge a customer, we actually get that money all. We get the full $8.99 if that's what we're charging. We get the full $8.99, and VeriSign just dings our prepaid account for the $7.85 or what the actual number is. So you're always seeing these weird sort of line items, and basically what happens is the prepaid account gets drawn down and then back up once we refill the account, and there's always that movement in cash. But it's that's the way the VeriSign works. They don't all work that way, but VeriSign does.
Okay. Now you guys have a pretty cool feature on the website. You guys actually display your domain counter on the website, and I personally like tracking it. And occasionally we see it go up, occasionally we see it go down. Is there any reasons for sort of the gyrations that happen with that domain counter, or anything?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So every day there's a domain that expires, and users register new domains or transfer in domains. So this year, for example, we've had about 900,000 domains expire, and obviously a little bit, about 950. That's why the numbers sort of keep going up slowly. Registered and transferred in. So we looked into the reasons, and it looks like it's because of the low pricing that we had over the past 2 years or the past year with the rebate program VeriSign offered. So we were offering domains for .com domains for like $6.99, $7.99, and what we found was a lot of those. While that a year later, now we see that those domains a lot of them aren't being renewed. So that we changed that. We stopped participating in this program as of Q4 last year. So the real test will be to see how the renewal rates work going forward. And we just made a little chart, and it looks like the expiration count is coming down over the course of the last few months. So that's a good sign.
Yeah. So to sort of make it clear, if you tend to discount heavily, the sort of percentage of expiry goes up. The minute you discount less, the expiry percentage goes down. And what we're finding is just that as we sort of get out of more and more promotions, our expiry, we've got to churn the old expiries, and once they're done, we're starting to see that we're leveling off, and we're seeing less of these domains that people just let expire. If you're a domainer, the way they think is that I'm going to try and invest in as many names as I possibly can, with the idea that if I can sell them off at a higher price, I'm going to make money. So if you got a domain at $2-3, you got more money to spend, you're going to have more domains. But if you don't sell them again, the next year you're just going to let them expire if it goes back to regular pricing. So we're kind of coming to the end of that. That's kind of what Kristaps is saying. So our churn should lighten up a little bit on the domain count. What do we throw in another question here? And then Trevor, you can keep coming at us. Okay, Paul, could you please spend some time talking about the balance sheet, the debt, and what to expect near term about managing the debt? Okay, so there's we owe roughly $10 million. We have made a payment that I'm just waiting to hear about how we have to disclose that right now. The debt itself is in the hands of our single largest shareholder. They've been very flexible with us. We're working with them to make sure that everything stays orderly and everybody's happy. I should have some news here shortly in terms of the debt. But the expectation is that through cash flow, through the portfolio that we have, and through some discussions we're having with Tier 1 bank, that we should be in a position to pay off that debt and replace it with some bank debt and the balance in proceeds from, like I said, cash flow and the portfolio. So so hopefully that answers that. I'm certain if there's other questions to that, I'll try to clear that up a little bit more. But Kristaps' next question is, what's NameLot, and compare that to the current marketplace?
Sure. NameLot's a brokerage, so you can basically get a domains for sale page for free. So if you own a domain and you want to sell it, you go to NameLot, or so one of our competitors. So Cedo is another one. Afternic. These all offer these services. Afternic, Sender, GoDaddy, Cedo is its own thing for now, and they charge, I believe, 20%. We're looking at charging the same thing for the brokerage side, and then 10% if you sell it yourself, or if you're not using our brokerage platform, which means somebody else selling for you. But yeah, basically, if you want to sell a domain, you go there, you list it. It goes onto the marketplace page. It also gives you the option to add a for sale page for yourself for that domain. So if the user goes there and they want to buy the domain, then they can directly do it from our platform. Yeah, that's basically it. Any specific question around that one?
I think I'm the layman here, so I try to translate everything into a little more layman's term. But like we said, domainers are a big part of our business. What we're trying to do is make it as easy as possible for a domainer to be able to sell one of their domains. We're trying to sort of open up as many options for that domainer to be able to sell it in format that in some cases doesn't exist. So, Kristaps mentioned the Uberization. Technically, anybody who becomes part of the platform can turn around and sell a domain and capture a commission by doing it. So we're constantly trying to make it easier for domainers to sell and more reason for domainers to come to our platform. Okay, 170,000 customers. What is the average spend per user, and what are we able to do to increase this? I'll touch on this a little bit, and this says Kristaps is way above my technical level, more confusing than informative. Yeah, I know the feeling. He's a lot smarter than me, and a lot of this stuff goes over my head as well. So about 170,000 customers. Realize that some customers are whales and some are very small. So when you look at the average, there really is, there's a real difference in the spend amongst some of these. I think as of last quarter, we were generating roughly $47 per user per quarter. The challenge with that is, like I said, you can have one user come in, and literally we've seen it where they've spent $100,000 in a day, and they're just buying as many domains as they can. So it's a little bit harder to use that number to really substantiate what the average user is spending. Our goal is to see that number increase because of the different services. But if we drive, if we land one more large whale domainer, that really affects our numbers. So it's not the best metric to be using. I know companies like GoDaddy and some of the other competitors, they do that, but they're able to really do that because they do have an average customer. We kind of don't have an average customer. So I don't know, Kristaps, if you want to add to anything there, if that made sense or not.
Yeah, I think it's the underlying answer is that we know that the ancillary services are going to add the dollar amount that matters and the margin that matters. So stats are fun, but they're not useful unless they're usable. So that's the key metrics are the growth in the add-on services.
Yeah, good point. Okay, another question here. I have a few domains. I seem to be targeted on Facebook with Namesilo ads regarding .icu. Why not more promos for .com to increase quality Namesilo counter?
Yeah, so this goes back to what I mentioned earlier, that some of these registries pay us for their advertising. It doesn't make sense yet for us. Everything we're doing is we're trying to do it on an ROI positive basis, especially with anything Facebook advertising related. And it just doesn't make sense to drive .com registrations with the dollar margin that we take. until we have these add-on services and we have enough self-load that we like and we're ready to make more money on per user basis.
Okay, good. Okay, Kristaps, can you discuss your view on domain name pricing trends near and long term?
It's a constant battle between all of these registries. Every registry is its own business, like com. Com obviously has a good basis for raising prices. Everyone wants, com is still the gold standard of TLDs. Org was granted approval to start raising prices. Some shady things going on there with their ICANN boss taking over. Anyway, you can read up on the stories there. In terms of raising price, it's hard. Some of these, like the little ones like ICU and Buzz and all these new ones are trying to actually keep the pricing low to drive more volume because they're competing against other smaller guys. It's really, I guess the key question is between .net, .com, .org, and then the other guys in terms of pricing. And yeah, it's hard to.
Yeah, I'm going to throw something else in. Part of the pricing mechanism too is what the aftermarket sale values are on some of these domains. Like you're starting to see some record prices for single word domains. So you've got the retail and you got the wholesale side. On the sort of the aftermarket pricing has absolutely gone crazy to the upside. I think we've seen some $6 million type sales. So that's driving a lot of domain investor interest. But you know, the wholesale price or the original price, you're still seeing some competitive pricing out there, but you're getting to the point where you're seeing, you know, 3-word domains, or, you know, so it'll be interesting to see how the non.com part of the market starts to catch up, because we're starting to see more interest in, you know, .co and these other TLDs, because you can still access 1 or 2-word domains. So, you know, this is a real estate market more than anything else, and then some of the best real estate's already been taken, but the demand continues to grow. So I think longer term the pricing is going to have to stay pretty buoyant. All right, let's see. Is it recurring? I'm assuming revenue recurring. Can you define what a domainer is? Yeah, so roughly 85 to 90% of the domains under management get renewed every year. So to that degree, it's recurring. Our domainers, or sorry, our customers, they're, you know, I'd say it's probably closer to 99% stay with us. So from that standpoint, it's a highly recurring revenue business. Certainly the ancillary services, that's all recurring, because once you've got a website, you got to, if you want to keep it, you got to keep paying for your different you know, products and services. So this is a highly recurring, repeatable business. So yeah, so hopefully that answers your question, Dave. And then it says, can you define what a domainer is? Maybe Kristaps, you can sort of give a general idea what a domainer is.
Yeah, it's just a short form for a domain investor. People that speculate on domains.
Yeah, I mean,
like it's like fine art. I compare it to like a fine art. If you can get like a, I don't know, keyword.com for 20 grand, and you hope that 2 years down the line a company like that might exist and want that domain or whatever. It's speculation, but it's the value doesn't seem to drop, but you just have to be ready to hold it and make sure that you're renewing the domain. But it's an interesting game some people play.
I mean, we don't really categorize a domainer, but usually you're going to see most people who buy domains and do this as a bit of a living, you're going to see them probably have, you know, 30, 40 plus domains or more. The average non-domainer still has a number of domains, because if you're going to set up a website, typically you're going to buy, you know, anywhere from about 5 to 10 domains and sort of reroute the traffic to that one domain. So I don't know, is there a number we kind of use as what qualifies as a domainer? Not really.
I don't know, it's tough. I don't know.
Yeah.
I usually, for any questions like this, I use 50 plus domains. But
Yeah. Okay.
it's all made up numbers. We don't actually ask.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Sorry, Dave. Hopefully that answers you. How do you acquire domainer? Is that something where you're physically selling to them and pitching to them? Oh, how do you get a domainer as a customer? Again, probably a good question for Kristaps. How do we go and get some of these investor?
Yeah, so this business has grown purely by guerrilla and word of mouth. So the founders 10 years ago when they started this company didn't spend, well, they spent a little bit on marketing, but nothing significant. So it's been a lot of word of mouth. It's a very cheap registrar. We're a very low cost registrar. So it's just you provide the right services, give away the right things for free, and they find you. So nowadays we're in a lot more paid type of, we're in blogs, and some of the bigger blogs we're advertising on and seem to get pretty good conversion rates on new people coming in. So it's mostly word of mouth, but some spend on marketing as well.
Yeah. Okay, so Casa asks, there's been some consolidation in the space. Have any bigger companies approached you already with the intent of buying the Namesilo business? Yes. We certainly see consolidation in the industry, and we've had interest from a couple parties. Obviously, nothing has happened yet, but we are, we're in a business that is getting consolidated, and we are. I think we're the 14th or 15th largest, and one of the only ones that are still independent. So, we're pretty aware that we've got a bit of a bullseye on our back right now. So. So the answer is yes. Is the aftermarket going crazy because of COVID, or is there some other reason? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. If you mean the aftermarket for the pricing of domains, no, I think it's just simply it's a supply and demand issue. Tesla, for example, I think Tesla was sold about 6 months ago. Tesla.com that went for $6 million. They just were in a position where they came to an agreement. I think Voice.com was another big one that went recently. People are recognizing that this type of real estate, if you want sort of, Fifth Avenue real estate, you got to pay for it. I think that's just the nature of supply and demand. So I don't think it has anything to do with COVID. And Ray recommends that we check out dnjournal.com for the top 20 sales each week. Yeah, so if you really want to check out, there's a number of sites where you can actually see what's happening in the aftermarket and some of the sales on some of these things. It's not unusual to see somebody pick up a domain for less than $10 and resell it for $20,000, $30,000. That's kind of what everybody's hoping to do. So that's pretty commonplace. Given that you have such high recurring revenue stream, why the variability, seasonality of the revenue? So some of it has to do with just how revenue gets recognized. Some of it has to do with the promotions that go on. We did have Q4. That was a lot more of a revenue recognition issue than it was general sales. Yeah, this is a bit of a tougher business to count because of a lot of the weird things that go on in this business. If it was just purely on a cash basis, you'd see very steady numbers with this. But there's so much variability on how and when things renew. I don't know, Kristaps, if you want to add anything to that, the variability in some of the revenue numbers we see.
They're really, it's more of like a step curve, I guess, or step ladder up to the right. I'm not sure about accrual accounting and IFRS standards, and honestly, it's the wrong way of doing things in this business, but it is the standard we have to follow for some reason. So that is what we do.
Kristaps will smile when I say this, but we're constantly sort of battling the accountants and the auditors to really get an understanding of why they want things accounted for in a certain way. The accounting is very complicated, but the business itself is very simple in the way it works. We get paid up front, call it $9 for a domain. We have to, we pay out right away. And when it comes to, so literally if we're paying, if we're getting $9 and we have to pay out $8, you'd think that's pretty simple, but the reality is we have to amortize that $9 over the course of the year, because that's how long the service is rendered for. Some of the costs get amortized over the same period, some of them don't, right? So you get that thrown into the mix, and it just sort of throws everything off. And then because of the way the company was purchased, you've got amortization of goodwill and customer lists and all sorts of stuff. So man, accountants make our life a lot more difficult than it should be. But and there's probably a couple accountants here that are probably a little upset that I said that, but that's just what we have to live with. The business itself is a lot steadier than the revenues and the accounting suggests right now. Okay, so your March results showed mostly that the growth trends have been unchanged. In what you've seen so far in April, May, June, has your growth trajectory changed at all as COVID has set in? So I spoke to Kristaps a little bit about this. COVID has had a mildly positive impact early on, but now there's not much of a change. This is a very steady Eddie business. We're not seeing any negativity from COVID. We're not seeing any massive positivity from it. It's just very steady. Kristaps, do you want to comment on that at all? Maybe there's...
Basically, I'll draw it for you if you want to follow my finger. Basically, it's like this: COVID, and then end of COVID as people got outside of their house, and the curve has continued as it was before COVID. There was a slight bump in traffic and domains registered and new users registering, but people were at home doing nothing, hopefully, and that's what caused that. That's the theory. But yeah, people are back outside now and less worried about, I guess, registering domains.
Yeah. Okay, so here's a good question. I'm glad somebody brought this up because I didn't touch on it too much. Tax issues, re note 12 financials. Do you expect this to have a significant effect on the company? So, so what's happened with our businesses? Some of the European countries that we sell into, we weren't properly collecting a value-added tax. So we had to adjust for that, and we probably over-adjusted for that. So that was the impact there. Now, going forward, the new payment processes we have are all going to properly account for that. So we'll be properly collecting the VAT tax. So longer term, no, it shouldn't have any impact. It might, it might price us a little bit differently, but it's not material. So it shouldn't have any impact longer term. Kristaps, again, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, we'll be announcing to the Europeans in the world that we're going to start soliciting to European customers when we're ready. Right now we haven't. They've basically come to us. Whatever the legality of what I just said is, it doesn't matter. But the point is, we're going to announce that we're going to start collecting VAT, and that's when we're going to start collecting and declaring VAT.
Yeah.
There are competitors of ours who still do not collect VAT in Europe. So it's still evolving, but we should be collecting, and we will.
Yeah. I've run through the questions. Trevor, do you any that you can think of that I haven't answered here?
Yeah, I've got a couple more. Maybe we go back to the balance sheet. The company has quite a few different investment holdings. Maybe could you talk about some of those and your rationale on how you're going to sell it, or when you're going to sell it, or if you're going to sell it, and what how you view them.
Yeah. So perfect. So the bulk of the assets are really in two companies, and more specifically in one. So Immunoprecise, and then Atlas, and a little bit less so in Light Access. They're basically all for sale. So the goal here is to clean up the balance sheet, or at least clean up the debt partly through the balance sheet. So you're going to see over the next little while that we've sold down some of the holdings. The goal really is to, like I said, clean up the optics, pay down the debt as much as we can, and then just go from there. The one that is probably the one that I think has the most upside that I'm going to try to hold on as long as I can is the IPA, and based on how the market either agrees or disagrees with me, we'll continue to sort of work to to clean up the balance sheet and balance, holding it as long as we think makes sense. So, yeah, hopefully that answers your question. But clean up the balance sheet, pay down the debt. That's what we're looking to do right now.
Got it. And then as far as sort of the long-term strategy of Namesilo, are you guys building this for a final sale? Do you want to just continue to execute on domain growth and, value-adding services? What should the shareholders be thinking, on a 5 or 10 year sort of time horizon, real long-term?
If you think back what Namesilo was to begin with, it's really an investment holding vehicle. I think our goal is to eventually sell the asset, and we, like we said, we've had some inquiries already, so we think that'll be a doable thing. But we don't think we packaged it up properly right now. There's still some work to do to increase our ancillary services and sort of extract a little bit more value out of the customer base that we have. Long-term goal, yes, it's to sell the business. Are we ready to do that right now? Obviously, if the price was right, we would. But we think we have a little bit more work to do to fix it up and position it properly for the marketplace. It comes in waves. So we saw about 6 months and earlier, we saw a number of deals in the space, and it seems to have gone a little quiet, maybe partly due to COVID. But this is a fantastic business. When you think of the opportunities with our customer base, there's a lot of non-domain businesses that would love to get access to 170,000 new customers where they can upsell their services. So we think when the time is right, it should sell for significantly more than certainly what it's trading at right now, and I think significantly more than what we paid for it. So.
Got it. And so just touching base back on the revenues versus sort of the ancillary revenues, do you guys break that down at all, and if you don't, do you sort of plan to do a bit more of a comprehensive breakdown in sort of the disclosure?
So we don't do it right now. I think we will in the future. It's still a relatively nominal number, so it'd be a lot of work for something that really doesn't materially, have an impact on the numbers right now. I think it does make sense to do it, at some point, but not quite yet. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe on that, is there anything the investors should be tracking to sort of get a sense of how those ancillaries are doing, or some sort of guidance stick?
I think we're going to be a little more proactive in putting some news out in terms of some of the things that are happening. The easiest thing to watch, is the domain count. Yeah, I think we'll think that through a little bit to determine how to best sort of position the metric.
I think once the numbers get sort of larger in the hosting side, I think it's a good sales tool potentially to start listing. Like the 3.5 million domains, that's a good sales tool, I guess, in theory, to show people that we're big enough that they can trust us. So once the numbers get larger, like I'll try. We're at about 3,000 something packages right now sold in hosting, so it's potentially possible to push that on some page somewhere publicly so you can track it. But I don't see a big reason that we necessarily wouldn't do that. So eventually, yeah, when the numbers become more marketing levels type of interesting numbers, then I think for sure we can list them.
Got it. And then maybe this one for you too, Kristaps. As far as that ancillary pipeline looks, what else is on the roadmap? Where do you want to focus your attention in that regard, and what can we sort of expect to see?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so ancillary is in sort of upselling to the small, medium business type of segment. We're pushing out this WordPress hosting type of idea. That's going to be interesting if we can figure out a nice import tool for that component. So what we can do is start finding all websites that are at GoDaddy and start emailing, start trying to get in contact with those users through certain methods, and saying, hey, you could save whatever $100 a year by just clicking this button and transferring over, making that simple. That's a pretty exciting marketing prospect. But in terms of the actual services, we already have hosting, shared hosting, premium DNS, SSL, web builder type of services, email. So these things exist. It's not necessarily the fact that building them is the key. It's getting them in the right eyes at the right time. And that's where the upsell question comes into play again. So yeah, figuring out the upsell funnel and iterating on that and getting the user that needs hosting, that gets a domain to buy the hosting from us is going to be key.
Right. Okay.
And then for just wrap up. So the ancillary side, on like ancillary being sort of something extra, the Namelot product. So we have mostly domainers under our platform, under Namesilo. And so what that means is when we have a brokerage platform, which is bug-free and it's out of beta as of now, we can start email campaigns to our existing user base to get them to list their domains through this platform and list them through our brokerage. And so that's a significant amount of domains and people that we can target that are already our customers. So that's an exciting prospect.
Okay. And then maybe back to you quickly here, Paul. As far as different acquisitions go for the business, for Namesilo, is there anything out there? Are you guys looking? What can sort of the investors expect there?
Sorry, I didn't catch the first part.
Sorry, acquisitions. Any acquisitions that are sort of out there?
Yeah, I mean, there's always acquisition opportunities in the hosting space. I don't think our eye is necessarily on acquisitions just yet until we clean up the balance sheet. I think there'll be plenty of opportunities if we really want to start pursuing that side. It's there's a different component of the business that we have to look at if we're going to go into M&A right now, and I'd sooner make sure that we've got our ancillary services and some of the other products kicking a little bit better before we do that. So yeah, we're not actively looking. If something falls into our lap, then for sure we'll look at something. There's a few more questions that have popped up. I want to jump on these things as I can here. Can you provide your view or reconcile the stock price against the fundamentals for the benefit of the audience here? So if you look at the last quarterly numbers, you see that our adjusted EBITDA numbers came in around 500,000 for the quarter. I think it's pretty safe to say that we should be able to annualize those numbers. So I think we've got a run rate business of about $2 million in EBITDA per year, and I think we can effectively cut a few more costs that should drive that a little bit better. But if we use that number, 2 million, there's not that many comparables that are publicly traded right now. There is, we always go back to GoDaddy. GoDaddy right now, I got my numbers up here. GoDaddy right now trades at an enterprise value of 28 times EBITDA. So, what are we trading at? We've got 63 times, quickly doing the math. What is our market cap? 63 million roughly times, say 25 cents. What is this not working?
15.75, 63 times 0.25. So like 16 Canadian.
16, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah, Canadian.
Yeah. So 16 Canadian. You add up the debt minus the assets, you probably add about another $6 million. So 22 million. We're trading at less than 1 time sales, and we're trading at roughly 10 times EBITDA, EV to EBITDA. So we're about a third of the value of a GoDaddy right now, as far as metrics. Yeah, they trade at 4.3 times revenue. We're trading less than 1 times revenue. So I think I would argue that we're fundamentally pretty cheap. We're growing faster than GoDaddy, and I think we've got a lot more potential upside in increasing our revenue per user. So I'm obviously talking up my book, but I think the stock's really cheap when you compare it to any other business that's kind of in the space or has a kind of growth profile that we do. What is the rationale for holding on to IP as opposed to the others? I just know the business well enough for disclosure purposes, I'm a director now of IPA, so I know some of the inner workings and just feel that the business is not being properly valued by the market. So that's really the reason for it. I know it well enough and think that, quite frankly, I think if we were to market it and sell it as a complete company, we'd probably get 2 to 3 times what it's currently trading at. So yeah, that's the rationale for holding on to it. How big are the other holdings compared to Namesilo? So this one, yeah, I think as of last, I mean, anybody can go and see the portfolio to see what's in the sort of in the portfolio up until the last quarterly statement. But the value is roughly between $4 and $5 million, somewhere around there. Namesilo arguably is worth significantly more than that. So I don't know how to substantiate the value of Namesilo LLC, but yeah, it'd be significantly more than the 4 to 4.5 million or 5 million that we've got in the portfolio. So of course, I can't quite answer that question for you. And then Dave says, does GoDaddy have a higher revenue per user than you guys? I believe they do. Sorry, I believe they don't actually. And that's not, we're not comparing apples and apples when we do that, because we literally have some users that spend hundreds of thousands of dollars with us. So that skews the numbers. So it's yeah, it's not. I don't think it's a very good metric to use as comparable. There are a lot of more upselling opportunities that we think we have with our customers than GoDaddy does. GoDaddy does a fantastic job of upselling and extracting every last dollar they can out of the users. They also, by the way, they spend a massive amount on marketing, which we don't. And if they were not to spend that marketing dollar, I think you'd see the company actually, shrink quite a bit. But they've got the market cornered on new users, and like anybody who thinks about getting a domain, immediately they think of GoDaddy because of all the marketing. So they tend to capture a small customer, and they just try to extract as much money as they can out of them. Anybody who's been around for a while, they typically leave GoDaddy once they realize how much cheaper pricing is for their products elsewhere. So
yeah, we have just to jump on the GoDaddy attack wagon. We have a 10-to-1 ratio of transfers in versus out from GoDaddy. So most people get hooked and they buy their 2-year, their cheap 99-cent domain that comes with a automatic purchase of a second year for whatever, $30. So your average price is high. And then 2 years down the line, they realize that they're overpaying, and then they find companies like ours. So it's a good top funnel. There's $75 million a quarter they spend on getting awareness out to the market, and then we try to capture some of those users down the line.
I got a question from Max. Does Namesilo intend to keep operating as a holdco, or is the plan to focus on Namesilo core web business? Yes, the answer is the idea is to sort of clean up the business as much as possible, so it really is the core business. So yes, pay down the debt through the assets we've got at the right time, and then really focus on Namesilo as the operating and single entity of the business. Mm-hmm. Oh, here's one more. Oh, there you go. Just thank you for your time. Yeah, if anybody else has any other questions, I know this is sort of a little scattered. We really wanted to make it as much a Q&A as we possibly could. Hopefully I've covered everything off. Really, I think we want to refocus on sort of getting the word out in terms of what we're doing. This is a very healthy business where we generate good solid revenue, good solid cash, and the goal here over the next little while is to clean up the balance sheet as best we can, so that everybody understands the operating metrics that we're working with. And like we said, if we clean this up properly, we know for a fact that there's entities out there that will buy this business because it's worth a significant amount of money in the space, and that customer base that we have, we know is worth a lot of money to other players in the space. So last chance for any other questions if you guys want to throw anything in there. Kristaps, if you have anything that you think I missed that you think is important for these guys to know. Trevor, if you think there's anything I missed, you let me know as well.
Yeah, I mean, what's maybe to wrap it all up, what's got both of you guys really excited about the business right now? And you've had Namesilo under management for about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years. Yeah, what's exciting about it right now?
I guess the opportunity. It's we're basically, I like to say that we're the Walmart of the internet. If we can grow our customer base and get some more branding out there, there's no reason we can't be at the Namecheap level or even GoDaddy. I think GoDaddy's going to be in trouble over the next few years, but yeah, for many reasons. But I can explain those later. But yeah, I think there's a lot we can do. It's the internet. It's expanding. There's more people online. People want domains. There's lots of TLDs, lots of things to offer them, and we provide it. So I think it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and the thing I'd add is that most of the heavy lifting for the technology debt that we inherited when we picked up the business, most of that has really been done now. So I know it looks like not much has been accomplished over the last little while, but that's the back end has Kristaps and his team has done a fantastic job of making sure the back end can now handle the new services and any future growth. Most of the new services now are in place one way or another, and really the only thing left to do is now to tweak how we go and monetize these things. So that's, if anything, that's where Kristaps and his team really shine, is the ability to do guerrilla marketing and get out there and generate traffic and get people buying stuff. So if anything, we've done the hard and heavy lifting now, and now the question is how much can we grow the business from here? So I think things are going to start to look pretty good here pretty quickly.
Great.
All right. Oh, listen, okay. I know we've taken up a lot of your time. We've just gone over the hour here. I want to thank everybody for participating here. I think you're going to see there'll be sort of a new face to Namesilo here as we go forward. I think there's you'll see a significant amount of news start to come out. I think certainly if anybody's got any other questions I forgot here, I'm available. You can go to or email me at paul@brizio.com. You can go to the website. You can feel free to send Kristaps any sort of technical questions you may have. But I really want to thank you guys for all joining us, and look forward to updating you guys on significant progress as it comes here.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul. And thanks again, Kristaps, for joining the call as well.
Good thing.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Super. Thanks, everybody, and we'll talk soon.
Bye, guys.
Cheers.